Today's meeting is all about cryptocurrencies. Now, I'm sure you are aware of the massive growth in the value of Bitcoin recently. More than 400% growth in the past 12 months. But do you really understand Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency or blockchain or digital wallets? I guess not all of us do. So before we listen to our presenter, I want to show you this 3-minute video called Bitcoin Explained.
Redskins, dodo heads, tepid lemonade. Get out of it. Redskins, dodo heads, tepid lemonade.
Hey, mate, I'll take 5 of your Ratskins and one of those tepid lemonades.
It's one chicken, mate. It's not a chicken.
No, that's much better than a chicken, my friend. That is gold.
What?
Gold. The currency of the future.
Great, come back in the future. Ratskins,
But no, mate, I don't think you understand. This has unlimited use.
Can I eat it?
No,
Can I wear it?
no,
Can I use it as firewood?
no.
It's starting to sound pretty limited, mate.
But you can melt it and then turn it into whatever you want.
Can I turn it into food?
No, you can't
Sorry,
eat it.
is this going to take long?
Hold all your horses, mate. We are dealing in futures here.
Oh, what's that? Is that a rock?
No, worse, it's cold.
Oh, cold. How do I get some cold?
Gold. I have people mining for it.
Oh, you have people. La-dee-da. We got a rich one here, eh? What do you pay them with?
Gold.
Next.
No, they say that this currency could be worth 1,000 Ratskins, maybe even more, in just a few years.
Says who?
The people with gold.
Fuck. Next.
Look, every economy ever has been controlled by the big chicken banks.
Next.
And this is our opportunity to get out from under the big chicken boots,
Fuck me.
shake
Next.
up the market, and start taking back our economic independence. Are you with me?
No.
Really? Come on, man. Look, all my mates are doing it.
I'll just get your hand off it, all right? Everyone's trying to predict the next alt rock. First it was stone, then bronze, then iron, now gold. What can I even do with this shiny shit? Make fucking jewellery out of it or something?
Yes, you can do that. Great idea, because it's malleable. And, best part of all, there's fuck all of it. It's a finite resource.
Mate, I'll tell you what a finite resource is. My fucking patience, all right? Now, piss off!
You know what? Stuff it. I'm taking it back. That's like talking to my dad.
Yeah. Why don't you go discover avocado and smash it on toast, you dickhead?
Yeah, maybe I will.
Sorry, mate.
I'll have a dodo head, thanks.
Half a chicken. Piss on me, not you two.
Oh, no. This is way better than gold. It's silver, or as I like to call it, light gold cash. It's faster to mine. It's...
It's got to be the last one, surely. Ratskins, dodo heads, very tepid lemonade. Get it here. Desert warm.
Okay, everyone back. My apologies for the strong language there. I actually forgot about that. But the idea was to just convey the message of future payment methods. Now, it was just tongue-in-cheek, but who knows, it might be true of Bitcoin as well. Just something else on Bitcoin. You remember the story that Jeff told us at the Password Manage meeting in February about Mr. Stefan Thomas. He was a software developer who received 7,002 Bitcoins in 2011 for making an animated video, but then lost his password to unlock the Bitcoin wallet. Well, the latest is he had 10 chances. And the latest information that I have is that he did not succeed to unlock those Bitcoins. Now, at the current value of around 55,000 US dollars per Bitcoin, Marius can correct me if I'm wrong, but around that, he lost about 385 million US dollars because he couldn't find his password. Now, I think after today's presentation, you may understand his dilemma better. Today's presentation is not just about the financial side of cryptocurrencies, but also about the technology that makes it possible. Now, in the last newsletter, I sent you a brief bio summary of Marius Reitz, our presenter today. Although he grew up in the Swartland, and specifically in Mariusburg, Marius went to school at Boys High in Paarl, and he studied at Stellenbosch University, but is now based in Gauteng. Marius is the General Manager for Africa at Luno. Now, Luno was the first crypto exchange to launch in Africa and is today one of the leading crypto exchanges in the world, with more than 6 million customers and offices all over the world. Marius told me that the main operational office that controls their exchange globally is based in Cape Town, something for us to be proud of. I'm very excited about this presentation. So make notes if you have questions, or better, post it in the chat panel. I will keep an eye on that and interrupt Marius when I think it is necessary. And we will have ample time to discuss the questions afterwards. So Marius, it is over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction, Johan. I'm a millennial, as you can probably see or judge by my rather empty bookshelf behind me. If I look at some of your backgrounds, it's quite a contrast. As Johan said, I'm from the Swartland area, from a farming community, and I find myself in Johannesburg now working in cryptocurrency. My family also farms, so it's quite a 360-degree shift from where I come from to where I'm now. So I'm not here today to convince anyone or to force anyone to buy Bitcoin. I think this is merely just knowledge sharing and maybe just intriguing you, maybe just getting you to go onto the internet and do your own research, or maybe if you want to take the first step, maybe just buying 10 or 20 rands of Bitcoin instead of going and putting your pension money into Bitcoin. So what is magical internet money? People often refer to Bitcoin as magic internet money, and that's what most people call it. I will try my best to explain Bitcoin and the entire industry. Johan gave me a list of 15, 20 questions or discussion points I have to touch on in a limited time. So I'll touch on most of them during the course of my talk. Yes, Bitcoin definitely caught the attention of the world over the last couple of years, but the reality is that very few people actually know what it is. If you go into a restaurant somewhere in Cape Town and you start asking people whether they understand or whether they know Bitcoin, most people will be familiar with it. They would have read about it somewhere, but if you start asking them around the technical aspects, or if they really understand it, very few people will actually be able to tell you. We see the Bitcoin market now, where it is now, and we compare it to the internet in the early 1990s. So although there's lots of hype and lots of attention in the media and everyone's talking about around the barbecue or the fire, it's still very, very, very much in the early days. But we are starting to see some cryptocurrencies, and there are more than 9,000 of them out there, but some of the most popular ones, slowly but surely starting to become more integrated with society. And an example of this is PayPal. I'm not sure if any of you have used PayPal in the past, but PayPal is the global payments company. They've got millions and millions of customers around the world. And during the course of last year, PayPal made it possible for their customers to buy and sell Bitcoin through the PayPal app or through the PayPal accounts. Earlier this week, they also announced that they now make it possible for people to spend their Bitcoin. So you can use your PayPal account and you can pay for goods and services in Bitcoin through PayPal. And just before the PayPal announcement, a company called Tesla, which Johan, I'm sure you will also cover, and it's a very appropriate topic for your study group. Elon Musk announced that they will now enable potential future buyers of Tesla vehicles to pay in Bitcoin. So slowly but surely, we're starting to see some of these big companies and corporations around the world making it possible for the public to interact with them through Bitcoin. A lot of people still speculate in Bitcoin, and that's the reality. I think if you go and read MoneyWeb or you go and read Business Day, you will see all the clever people saying that people buy Bitcoin as an investment because they want to hedge against inflation. They're very sophisticated in the investment, but the reality is that most people still only buy Bitcoin for speculative reasons. So they buy Bitcoin, they take a bet that the price will increase in the short run, and that way they can gain and get rich. So there's still a greed element. A lot of people become greedy and they jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. But having said that, we're also seeing more and more people taking a position in Bitcoin for the long term. So I'm not saying half of your discretionary income or half of your investment, but literally single-digit percentages. So a lot of people on a monthly basis, if they have 10,000 Rand available to invest or to save at the end of the month, they will put in 500 Rand into Bitcoin. And they will take a bet that the Bitcoin technology will mature and that more companies like the Teslas and the PayPals will make it possible for the public and will add more utility to cryptocurrency, and that way will drive up the value. And so it's very hard to believe that there's actually a sustainable market in South Africa. If you look at the news headlines over the last couple of months, you will see MTI, you will see BTC Global, and you will see all of these Ponzi schemes operating. And it almost feels like South Africa is becoming a hotbed for scams and for money launderers and for suspect operators. But there's a thriving market and industry operating underneath all of this noise. And as Johan said, Luno is based in Cape Town. And so, but I think I'm past my introduction now. Let me start going to the next slide. So just a very, very brief intro into Luno. The company was founded back in 2013, South African founders. We then in 2015 received investment from Naspers, and then later on from Rand Merchant Investment Holdings. So we had two local South African companies that had invested, not bought Bitcoin, but they'd invested money into Luno so that Luno can expand our offering and grow into new markets and build the business. We're a team of just over 400 people, and after 400, roughly 300 of those people reside in South Africa. We have a big office in Cape Town, situated in the Waterkant. So as you drive into the CBD into Cape Town, the office is very close to that location. And then we also have an office in Johannesburg. But as I said, almost 300 people based in South Africa. And people often think that a cryptocurrency business, people see it as a casino of sort, where people go and they speculate with Bitcoin and they either get lucky and they make money, or they or it ends up in tears. But we've got a very similar team structure to what you would see at the bank. So we have our finance team with chartered accountants, and they ensure that we're compliant, and they do the books and all of that. We have marketing team, we have operations team that ensure that all the internal mechanics of the business work correctly, and that the customers receive service. We have a very big compliance team. We've got a very big fraud team. They ensure that we keep our platform safe for other customers, and we keep scammers out. And then we have the technical team, and they're the ones that build the website. They're the ones that build the mobile application and to make it user-friendly for our customers and for everyone. So it's not the Wild West. People often think that we're a bunch of cowboys and it's the Wild West. But actually, it's a very structured business, and we're growing. We've got very, very capable people at Luno, people that worked at Google and Amazon and PwC and investment banks all around the world. What do we do? So at the very core, Luno is a safe gateway for people that would like to use their rands, the fiat currency, the rands that they own, and convert that to Bitcoin. We saw the opportunity back in 2013 to start offer this service, and because at the time it was impossible for South Africans to use their Bitcoin for and withdraw that back to the bank account. So we are building a bridge between the current financial system. Johan, I'm just checking if my internet connection is stable. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, you had a brief interruption there, but it's back now, so it's fine.
Okay, thank you. I did get a notification, so I'll just check with you when the line dips. We make it possible for people to buy cryptocurrency with their hands in their pockets. And we do that through a very easy to use mobile application. And so people can then also sell their Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency and withdraw that back into rands. We offer storage. So once you've purchased your Bitcoin, you can then store your Bitcoin on Luno. So it's similar to how you would keep your rands on your bank application or at your bank. Luno is that, spreading that out for people to buy and sell crypto, to store their crypto, but then to also learn. So big focus on our side is as soon as someone opens an account, we start the learning process. People need to understand the risks linked to cryptocurrency. People need to understand, the benefits, the use cases, and hopefully, that's something that we will run through now in this talk. And as I said, feel free to ask any questions. Luno's vision is to upgrade the world to a better financial system. Our vision isn't, or our goal isn't just to build a platform that people can speculate. We believe that decentralized money like Bitcoin can play an integral part over the next 10 to 30 years. So we're not saying Bitcoin will suddenly become the de facto currency in South Africa and around the world in the next 1 to 2 years. There is a much timeline linked to this. We think financial inclusion perspective, especially in African markets, and break down some of those barriers. So that is our belief, and our goal and our objective at Luno is to upgrade at least 1 billion people to a better financial system by 2030. So that's a grand goal. And I think if you looked at or considered any other industry, it would seem too far-fetched. But we honestly believe with the technology behind Bitcoin and with the fact that it's a global currency and not linked to any specific market, it has the potential to grow exponentially over the next couple of years. Before we touch on Bitcoin itself, I think it's important for us just to look at the evolution of technology over the last couple of decades, and look at the current financial system. And so if people often compare the way in which information systems evolved over the last couple of decades, how we went from sending letters via pigeons to other people, and then the landscape upgraded, and we were able to use landline phones, then mobile phones, and now we can do video calls from the comfort of our living room to someone in another country. So you can, by the click of a button, open your smartphone, you can go on a FaceTime call with someone sitting in the UK or in the US, and that all evolved from, or it all started many decades ago. So we think that money is the only large system that's used by humanity across the world that hasn't really scaled with the time and with technology. Sure, people can they can log into their bank account and they've got access to their mobile application, and it has a nice look and feel to it. But we believe that most of that's only changes that make your mobile banking look prettier. It makes it slightly easier, slightly cheaper, but it's not really financial freedom at all. We believe that cryptocurrency can play that role, can break down barriers, and at the end of the day, be used to transact with and bring down the cost of money transfers around the world. Looking at the evolution of money, so that video that Johan showed us just now was a very, very good explanation, and it focused on precious metals and gold. But if we look back to 600 years BC, when people first started to barter with shells and different objects and livestock, then we went on to gold, and people discovered gold. I think it was widely in use in the 1400s and 1500s in Europe. We then developed metal coins, which was easier to move around. You don't have to move around a gold slab. And then we went on to paper money. And then, so again, it became slightly easier. It's not as heavy as metal coins. It became slightly easier You can, watermark paper money so that you can differentiate between a fake note. Sometimes it's not that easy, and a legitimate note. And then in 1971, Richard Nixon, the US president at the time, announced that the US will be decoupling the US dollar from gold. And that is called representative money. So it's money that only exists on paper. And the famous author Yuval Harari, I'm not sure if some of you have read some of his books, he made the point and said that gold coins and paper bills only have value in our common imagination. It only has value because the other person that you exchanging that with believes that coin or that note is worth that much, and that's why we can spend it across South Africa. But if you look at the actual value, the actual value of that paper, it's not worth more the paper that it is written on. Then we evolved from paper money to plastic cards to bank cards. So it's made it easier for us to just swipe a card. It's safer because we don't have to carry cash on us. And then banks started to digitize money. So now all of a sudden, the paper money that you have in your wallet, that value sits in an electronic ledger at your bank, and you can see on the bank in digits you've got 100 rands worth of money, and into the next phase, cryptocurrency. So to show you is that the only change across this, the only constant across this is change. And if you look back over the last 70 years, you'll see that the money in its current form that we use today has only been in existence for the past 50 years, since 1970. So it's very, very short part of history if we zoom out and take a step back and look back to the barter era, which started before Christ. So people often think that because we use paper money and coins now, that is the way it has to be in future, and that's the only way it can be. But we're saying, what if there's something better? What if there's a currency that's global, that breaks down international borders, that makes it easier for people to transact, that makes it easier for people, cheaper for people to transact without having to jump through hoops and red tape? Maybe we should consider that. Maybe that is the next phase that we're entering over the next 10 to 20 to 30 years. And that is what we are very excited about. And so just why do we see this change why do we see this change? Why do we see new technologies come to the fore? And I think firstly, it's because we started to see a collective mindset change. As I said, people start to realize that the note that you have in your wallet, that really, it has value because a government says it has value. But other than that, it really has no value itself. And if anything, if this cryptocurrency innovation and Bitcoin itself, if it fails over the next week or the next 5 years, I think it would, to some degree, have served its purpose, because people started to think differently about money. People started to think, that they can use money in different ways, and they should not be restricted to how they can and use the money and where they can send their money. We've seen changing consumer needs. So a lot of innovation, a lot of changes is usually driven through consumer, changing in consumer behavior. Consumers demand things instantly. They don't like to wait. Consumers demand things cheap or for free, really. And so, the evolution here was largely driven by changing consumer needs. And to that extent, Bitcoin was created in 2008, 2009, shortly after or during the previous global financial crisis. And then lastly, you can have a mindset change. There can be a changing consumer needs. But if you don't have a technology to meet the demands, the consumer demand, then nothing can really happen. And in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and in blockchain, we now have a technology that can ensure instant transfers between two people without the need for a middleman. And it can ensure near cheap transfers or near free transfers, so that people sending money from country to country, for example, migrant workers working in South Africa, having to send money back to their families across the African continent, that they don't have to pay between 10 and 20% commission on 1,000 rand saving that money that they've saved to send back. So we've got the technology to enable this change and to really drive this change. Okay, so let's go and unpack Bitcoin a bit more. And I'm not going to go into all the technical details. I'm going to try and explain to you the concept behind it. So firstly, Bitcoin is a global currency. And so many people will argue that it's not a currency. Other people will say that it's an asset. Some people will say it's a commodity because they use it maybe for investment purposes. But the fact is that if you look at the definition of a currency, and I'll come to that slide in a bit, Bitcoin meets the same criteria as the other global currencies to be classified as a currency. So it's global, and meaning that no one is in charge. No single government or no single central bank is in charge of Bitcoin or of the cryptocurrency environment. It's a global currency. No one is in charge of it. It is governed by a set of rules that was written into the Bitcoin protocol. So it all exists. It all exists in protocols, and it all exists basically in the internet. This global nature of crypto enables us to send and receive money across the world. So you can send Bitcoin to someone, you can receive Bitcoin from someone, and you only need an internet connection, and you only need either a computer or you need a cell phone with an internet connection. There's no middleman. So what this means is that there's no need for trust. So you have a global currency that makes it possible for you to send and receive money without a middleman. So without a bank or without a central bank that has to process that transaction or that has to govern that transaction. So there's no need to trust a central authority like a central bank. And the result of this is that this makes Bitcoin a public payments infrastructure. So if you think about it, we have private payments infrastructure, and that is when you send payments through a bank, and you have to log in and you have to go through the bank's private ledgers and the bank's private book. Bitcoin is a public ledger, so there's no bank or there's no single authority that has to process that payment. And because of the fact that there's no middleman or there's no central authority, that brings down cost. So you don't have 10,000 employees sitting in the middle having to process that transaction manually, having to debit and credit to accounts. And the result of that also is that it speeds up the process. So people can transfer value instantly, and they can transfer value for free to some degree. If you think of other public infrastructure you have, the first one that comes to mind is information. So, and that is things like websites and things like email, and so more broadly known as the internet. The internet is global. It's not controlled by a single person or a single authority, and that's why we can access information on a global level. But why can't we do that when it comes to our money? Before Bitcoin, we had to rely on private banks. So we had to rely on Bank A to open up their ledger, to debit my account, and then if it's a payment between two customers at the same bank, then it's to some degree easy because there's one ledger. Debit my account, credit Johan's account. But if you send payments from Bank A to Bank B, then two banks have to open their ledgers. One bank will have to debit, the other bank will have to credit. And that's why we have 24 to 48 hour delays when we send money from point A to point B between different banks. When you make an international payment, so from South Africa to the UK, then you often have 3 to 4 entities involved in processing that transaction. So Bank A, you have to debit, then the rands go from rands to dollar. So then there's a bank in the middle. They have to credit their account, debit the other, and then from rand to dollar, from dollar it will go to the British pound, and then the person in Britain will then receive the money. So you've got 3 entities involved in that transaction, each delaying the process, each adding more costs, more reconciliation costs, and more technicalities to the process. With Bitcoin, that ledger, so the ledger A, that the SA bank, ledger B, that the intermediary bank, ledger C, that the UK bank have to operate and maintain with thousands of people manually, that ledger in the Bitcoin environment is called the blockchain. It is one global ledger that's open and available for anyone to see. If you send your Bitcoin from your Bitcoin wallet to person A, you will see that transaction on the blockchain, and that transaction is processed and confirmed by technology, essentially. And we will touch on the role of Bitcoin miners, which isn't an actual person, but we'll touch on the concept of a Bitcoin miner and the Bitcoin miner's role in confirming that transaction. But the key point I want to make here is that this is a global currency. It's not linked to a specific country. You don't have middlemen like you have in the event with local payments. The fact that you don't have middlemen reduces the need to trust a central authority. You don't have to trust a bank or someone to process that money timely according to their service level agreement. And it becomes faster and cheaper to send money. Lastly, the fact that it's global currency, you don't have these different players and banks having to process payments, results in one single database of transactions. And that transaction is clear and it's available for anyone to access. So 5 important features to act as a currency. And let's compare this to something we know. So Bitcoin is divisible. So one Bitcoin can divide into smaller units. So just like with dollar, you get a $10 note or $1,000, and you can also divide that into smaller denominations. Bitcoin is scarce. So if we compare this to gold, gold has a finite supply. The total supply of Bitcoin is limited to 21 million Bitcoin. So no more than 21 million Bitcoin can ever be in circulation. This makes it scarce, and scarcity over the long term drives up the value of a currency or drives up the value of a commodity, in the instance, or a resource in the instance of gold. Bitcoin has the same property. It is durable. So as Bitcoin doesn't exist in physical form, it can't wear out. So unlike a banknote that can wear out if you wash it or if you tear it up, similar to gold, it exists in physical form, and it maybe can change in shape if you look at gold, but it can't wear out. It is transferable. So Bitcoin is digital, so you can transfer it to anyone, anywhere in moments, needing an internet connection and needing a cell phone and or a computer. And lastly, Bitcoin is fungible. So any Bitcoin is equal in value to another Bitcoin. So similar to gold, 1 ounce gold is equal to another ounce gold. Unlike diamonds, for example, where lots of different factors come in play, and the clarity and the clearness of one diamond, even if it's the same carat, will give it a different value to the other. So if you look at these 5 features, these need to be present for you or for someone to safely be able to say that, okay, I trust this as a currency, and I trust that the other person will see it the same and use it in that way. So to bring this together, so people see Bitcoin as digital gold. So hence people buy Bitcoin as a means, to invest. They buy it as a store of value. And the reasons behind that is, firstly, Bitcoin, similar to gold, has a limited supply. And limited supply meaning that it's on a deflationary, it has a deflationary supply curve. So unlike fiat currencies and the dollar, governments can decide to print additional units of currency, and the more units of currency you have in circulation, the less valuable that becomes, and that typically leads to inflation. And so Bitcoin has limited supply, similar to gold. It's durable, it's stable, and it's impossible to counterfeit. So that's the investment and the store value side. Secondly, Bitcoin can also be used as a payment system. You can transfer it from person A to person B. It's captured on one global ledger instead of many different ledgers sitting behind closed doors at banks. It synchronizes across the internet, and the result of that is that it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's easier to use it as a payment system. And then lastly, Bitcoin has the internet. So Bitcoin isn't owned, the technology isn't owned by a single person, meaning it is decentralized. There is no single point of failure. So when Eskom goes offline, the Bitcoin network can't switch off, and it can't impact, and it can't impact your Bitcoin payment, and it can't impact the Bitcoin that you have in your account. And it's online 24/7. So you don't have business hours. You don't have to process a payment before 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. You don't have to worry about missing a cut-off date or cut-off time It's online 24/7 across the world time. So if you put these three elements into a blender and you mix them up, Bitcoin has digital gold, Bitcoin has a payment system, and Bitcoin has the internet, you'll get something very close to a cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin. People often compare Bitcoin or the use case of Bitcoin to let's say Visa. Visa, the payments company, the company that the logo that you have on your bank card. Visa is a company, and it has shares that's listed on many stock exchanges around the world. Visa is also a payment system. The more that people use the Visa cards to pay for goods online and in store, the more valuable Visa as a business will become. And technically, the Visa share price on many of these stock exchanges should increase over time. So people see Bitcoin in a similar way. The more that people start to use Bitcoin for what it was designed for as a payment system, the more value or utility people will see in Bitcoin. And as a result, and because of Bitcoin's scarcity, the price and the value of Bitcoin should appreciate over the next decade or two. Looking at the different cryptocurrencies, so I mentioned earlier that more than 9,000 of them exist out there. Unfortunately, 90 to 95% of the 9,000 you could very comfortably classify as scams or having no value or utility. So some of the most popular ones, firstly, Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created in 2008. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency and also the first application of a blockchain. So before people started using the blockchain for transferring data and for many other different use cases, which, by the way, we've not really seen go to the market, Bitcoin was used, and the blockchain's original value proposition was to transfer money or to transfer data across the blockchain. So Bitcoin is the most popular. Bitcoin has a market capitalization. So market capitalization is the number of Bitcoin that's in circulation multiplied by the Bitcoin price. Bitcoin has a market capitalization of 1.1 trillion US dollars. Now, if we compare this to gold, the estimate out there is that gold has a market capitalization of 10 trillion US dollars. So, even though Bitcoin is very top of mind, a lot of people talk about it, it's still very, very small compared to the gold market out there. The main users, people use Bitcoin or buy Bitcoin to speculate in the short term. They're greedy. People like to invest in Bitcoin as part of a diversification strategy, and people use Bitcoin to transact because maybe it is faster, maybe it is easier, and it is cheaper than using other options that's available in the market. Another type of cryptocurrency is called USD coin. So USD coin has a market capitalization of $11 billion. And USDC is a type of crypto that's referred to as a stable coin. So a stable coin is a cryptocurrency. So it's a digital form of money that exists on a blockchain. There's still no central authority. There's no bank that controls, or central bank that controls the stable coin. The stable coin is controlled by the blockchain network, and that coin is pegged to the US dollar. So the result of that is that it's a lot less volatile compared to Bitcoin. So people have more comfort in using a cryptocurrency that's linked to the US dollar to transact with, because what you send today is more or less what the person on the other end will receive. Unlike Bitcoin, where the price and the value of Bitcoin can fluctuate, 5 to 10% in very short space of time, making it less suitable for payments. And then the third type of crypto, the third crypto that you get, is called Ethereum. Ethereum has a $214 billion market cap. So that's in Ethereum tokens that's in circulation. Ethereum, well, many people use Ethereum also as a means to invest. The Ethereum blockchain has other applications. So for example, the use of smart contracts, and this is probably worth a separate presentation. But to make it very simple, one example would be to put your house or your transfer deed on the blockchain and make it a lot less efficient to transfer property ownership compared to the process we have today, where have to fill in many different forms through your bank and through the deeds office and that. But at the very core, Ethereum is a type of cryptocurrency. It's got more applications than Bitcoin. But because it's still very early, most people still use it just to invest and to invest in it. Just conscious of the time, some crypto facts. I did mention that more than 9,000 cryptocurrencies exist. Cryptocurrency, the market cap is 1.8 trillion globally. Then I mentioned the supply of Bitcoin that's limited to 21 million. You can buy a fraction. So on Luno, you can buy 10 rands, 20 rands, and you can buy 0.0001 Bitcoin. So it is divisible. The price of Bitcoin is determined by supply and demand and utility. So if people see value in using Bitcoin to do payment, more people start to use Bitcoin for payment, then the demand for Bitcoin should increase. And so it's completely driven by supply and demand. Luno doesn't set the price of Bitcoin. We don't sell Bitcoin. We provide the platform, the marketplace for people to come and buy and sell Bitcoin. Globally, we're seeing more or less between 300,000 and 400,000 Bitcoin transactions per day. Still, obviously, very, very low compared to normal bank transfers across the world. One of the attractions and also one of the potential pitfalls is that Bitcoin transactions are irreversible. So once a Bitcoin is sent on the Bitcoin blockchain and that transaction is recorded on the blockchain, that payment cannot be reversed. So in some industries, for example, the airline business, that is a good thing because people buy tickets to travel to different countries through the airline. They then purchase the ticket, they get on the plane, they fly to the other country. And then some people, unfortunately, go and request a reversal because they want to defraud the airline. And so airlines, just one example of companies that that's left out of pocket because of fraud. So in the airline business, the fact that the transaction cannot be reversed, that would be good because it would eliminate a lot of fraud that these airlines endure. But if you're new to cryptocurrency and you're just doing your first payment, you still have to get your head around it, and you make or send Bitcoin to the wrong Bitcoin address, then unfortunately that Bitcoin cannot be recovered as well. And so that's why it's very, very important for people to first understand, get familiar with how the Bitcoin marketplace, the Luno, works, how you open up an account, how you buy and sell your Bitcoin on Luno. And then secondly, you need to do your research and you need to play around with 10, 20 rands, and you need to send Bitcoin from person A to person B. Maybe that is a challenge for the audience today, for everyone joining that. Now after this, go and open your Luno account or any of the other cryptocurrency wallets in South Africa. There are 3 or 4 different ones, different companies. And with 50 Rand, buy Bitcoin, send it to the other person and see how the transaction works. See if you can trust the platform. Take a look at the cost to send the Bitcoin, take a look at the ease of doing that. And then from there, you can then go and you can say, okay, I've figured this out. I've got more confidence to do this. Then I will go and I will actually, pay for goods online, 1,000 to 3,000 Rand, because I know how to do this. How it works. So I explained this earlier. The above example, between different banks, different entries, debits, credits at bank A, debits, credits at bank B, sometimes a third bank, and the money flows between 3 or 4 intermediaries or 3 or 4 parties. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, flows from John's wallet to Jane's wallet, and the transactions processed on the blockchain on this global public ledger that captures all the transactions. So how do you move Bitcoin from your Bitcoin account, or how does it work? So, if you think of a safety deposit box, or if you think of, the post box, that post box can receive letters. So the postman can come and they can slip the letter into the post box because there's an opening at the top. So you can receive Bitcoin, but a letter. But if you want to, get access to that letter, if you want to take that letter out of the post box, you need a key, and you need to go and open that post box to take out that letter and have use of that letter. So in the Bitcoin world, very similar. If you have a Bitcoin account on Luno, or if you have a Bitcoin account, a Bitcoin address, you can receive Bitcoin from any person into your Bitcoin account. But if you want to spend Bitcoin, so if you want Bitcoin to move from your account to another person, you need a private key. And that private key unlocks, or that private key decrypts the information and the transaction and enables that transaction to be sent. This private key, of course, is digital. It does not exist in physical form. And so people have different ways in which they store this private key. And Johan, to your point around the person that lost their Bitcoin, or that can't access their Bitcoin, that is because they can't access their digital private key to unlock that account and to be able to send or spend that Bitcoin. So this private key, different ways exist how to protect this. If you use a company like Luno, we safeguard this private key on your behalf. So we safeguard this, and lots of safety and security processes behind us doing this. Or, alternatively, you can take self-custody of this private key. So you can, many people use tools that almost look like a USB drive or dongle. You can store your private key on that. You can even write your private key on a piece of paper. But the risk in doing that, the risk in storing your Bitcoin on a dongle or USB drive on a piece of paper is that should you lose that, then you also lose your Bitcoin, because then it becomes impossible for you to open that Luno or that Bitcoin account and spend your Bitcoin. Whereas if a company like Luno takes care of it, then so of course there is some level of risk, because you have to trust Luno to safely safeguard your crypto and not run away with that. How do I get Bitcoin? So a number of ways you can earn it. So someone can send it to you. You can, if you bake cookie sisters, you can ask people to pay you in Bitcoin instead of in other currencies. You can buy it with your hands on platforms like Luno. Or lastly, you can mine it. So Bitcoin mining is the process. So when you send a transaction on the Bitcoin, from Bitcoin A to Bitcoin wallet B, that doesn't happen automatically. It's not just magic that happens. There's a step in between, and that is the mining of Bitcoin transactions. So it is let's call it a computer program that checks that person A has a Bitcoin balance and there's sufficient funds to process that transaction. Person B has a Bitcoin address and it's a valid Bitcoin address. And then that Bitcoin miner, which is a computer program, will then validate that transaction. And as soon as it's validated, it will be processed. And so these mining programs, as a reward for validating the Bitcoin transactions and for keeping the Bitcoin transactions safe, they receive a reward in Bitcoin. So that is how new Bitcoin gets created and gets pushed into the market. So of the 21 million Bitcoin currently in circulation, of the 21 million Bitcoin that can ever be in circulation, roughly 18 million of the 21 million is currently in circulation. And that is as a result of Bitcoin miners validating transactions. So this must be very confusing, but as long as you understand that the mining isn't done by a spade and a fork, it's done by computer programs. I did touch on how to store Bitcoin. So you can store it on a platform like Luno, or you can store it yourself on a hardware wallet or on a piece of paper. Looking at the risks, very important. So firstly, because Bitcoin is still new and the market isn't as big as gold per se, it tends to be more volatile. So the price would fluctuate up and down. So that's something to be aware of. We encounter scams, unfortunately, in South Africa. We've had a couple of scams over the last couple of years. And these scammers exploit people. They promise unrealistic returns. These scammers they don't have businesses based in South Africa. They don't have physical offices in South Africa. And they often approach people on social media. That's the most popular. So someone on Facebook will send you a message. They often portray themselves as being very successful, wearing golden chains and driving fancy cars. And they then try and convince people to hand them their money so that they can manage it on their behalf. That, of course, the person then runs away. And that is what we saw with NTI in South Africa, and also BTC Global, which was there was this trader that had this magic formula to make money, and people trusted that person. Secondly, is people often receive SMSs from fake Luno or from fake cryptocurrency accounts and asking people to update their password and their email address or password and the information to prevent their account from getting shut down. So that is, that's one of the ways. When you enter your details onto that fake platform, they then get your login details and they go onto the legitimate Luno website and they capture. So the key point here is that never, when you receive an email, when you receive an SMS from someone pretending to be Luno or a crypto company, never click on a link and update your details. Banks and investment companies and Luno will never ask you to update your details through an SMS by clicking on a link. And then the last point, unsecured platforms. So many platforms have to keep your Bitcoin safe, but they don't have the capability, they don't have the expertise to really safeguard your Bitcoin and store your Bitcoin on your behalf. So you have to do your research and say, listen, I want to use Luno. Go onto the internet, find information about their directors, find information about their business, their presence in South Africa, about their security processes before you take the first step. Do we have time? I see it's 12.
Yes, no, you can continue. How much longer do you
5 minutes.
Yeah, no, fine.
So just from a regulatory perspective,
there's a number of questions which we'll get to, but no, you're welcome to finish.
Okay. I think regulation is an important point. It's one that a lot of people will follow closely. In South Africa, we've been working very closely with the South African Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank established their working group in 2018, and that's a working group comprising of SARS, of National Treasury, of the various regulators. And early 2020, they published their position paper, outlining their thoughts, their plan on regulating cryptocurrency and what they're thinking. So a couple of positive things there, they're proposing that cryptocurrency platforms must register as accountable institutions and then force them to follow the same processes as banks when it comes to the opening of accounts. So you have to provide your ID document and proof of address. So that's, many cryptocurrency platforms like Luno already do that, but that's going to be enforced in future. Then the FSCA, which is the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, and they issue licenses to investment managers, to financial advisors, to banks. And with that license, you can go and you can provide financial advice. No cryptocurrency company at this point has a license to give advice. And as part of that process to apply for a license, you have to obviously satisfy certain requirements. So you have to have a team that's capable of building the business. You need to have a local company, a local registration. You need to be paying your taxes, etc. So that will make it easier for the public to distinguish between a licensed cryptocurrency platform and one that's not licensed and that potentially pose a greater risk and would have, not have the same capabilities as the other one to, safeguard your money. And then lastly, the revenue service, so SARS. So they view cryptocurrency as an intangible asset, and they've even altered or edited the income tax return. So if you fill in your tax return, you will see that they've added certain sections to make it possible for you to declare cryptocurrency gains and losses. So if you actively trade in cryptocurrency, then that crypto will fall part of your income. And if you invest cryptocurrency, similar to how you would potentially invest in shares, let's say in NASDAQ, then if you sell that cryptocurrency and your intention is to hold it for the long term, then you will incur capital gains tax. So that is an outline of the regulatory landscape in South Africa. Regulators have been pragmatic and they realize that cryptocurrency is potentially here to stay and that it's becoming more and more widely used. So they're putting in safeguards to protect the public, from falling prey to bad actors. And then just to close off, back in the early 1990s, less than 1% of people used mobile phones. So people didn't really have an incentive to buy a mobile phone, because if only 1 out of 50 people in your neighborhood had a phone, why would you buy one? Because you can only talk to him. But fast forward to 2021, and we've seen almost more than 90% of people now have access to some form of phone, mobile phone, whether it's a smartphone or not, across South Africa. And the crypto market is still very, very much in the beginning. It's still, where the smartphone industry was in the early 1990s. It's not as developed as people would want it to be, as people think it should be. And so a lot of people think that they've missed out, or that it's too late to buy, some Bitcoin or to learn more about it. But over the next 10 to 20 years, you will see Bitcoin become more integrated into the financial system, and you will likely be able to, through your bank, be able to convert your rands into Bitcoin. And so in South Africa, Investec at this point, Investec is working on a crypto custody project where Investec will allow you, once you've purchased your Bitcoin on Luno, to send your Bitcoin to Investec so that they then can safeguard your Bitcoin. And then you have your bank balance and you've got your Bitcoin balance, everything together on the same platform. Okay, I think Johan, I think we're there. So just lastly, if you're interested, you can install the Luno app, or you can go to luno.com and you can type in this code 4IR into the promo section of the Luno app. So once you've installed the Luno application and you've gone through the first initial steps, then you will see that there's a section called rewards. If you type in this code 4IR, you will receive 50 rands worth of Bitcoin just for you to get started, just for you to buy and sell with 50 rands, send it to someone perhaps, and just to start the learning process. Thanks very much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then Johan, we can take it from there.
There are a number of questions. My gut feel is some of them has already been answered, but I'll go through them, just even if it's a repeat. So Marius, just bear with us. I'm going to go from the top. Okay, Helga is asking, with all the speculation going on at the moment, isn't Bitcoin overpriced at the moment?
As I said, so the Bitcoin price is determined by supply and demand. So when there's a big increase in demand, then the price will also increase. And the main reason why we're seeing the price increase now is mainly because of the global macro environment. So we're seeing, especially people in other markets, fearing that the currency they have over their pockets can depreciate. And that is as a result of central banks printing additional units of money as a means to help people to survive the global financial crisis. So that's why we're seeing the likes of Tesla and other big companies in the US buying Bitcoin, because they think that the value of the US dollar will depreciate over the next couple of years. So that increase in demand from big companies, the Teslas, the PayPals and other businesses buying Bitcoin, that is increasing, leading to the price to increase. So yes, you can argue that the price is too high now, you don't want to buy, but what a lot of people do is, instead of buying once off million rand, they buy on a monthly basis, they buy 1,000 rands for Bitcoin, and that way they go through the up cycles and the down cycles, and over time they've got an average price that's not too high, not too low, and they average out the market cycle. So if you don't want to put everything in at the same time, you can buy monthly in small amounts, and that way take advantage of when the price drops and then also when the price increases again.
Elga also asked, and I think we did address it to some point, that SARS is making noises of taxing Bitcoin. I think you did say it's considered the same as capital assets. In other words, capital gain tax might be applicable. Is that correct?
Correct, Johan. So you have to pay tax on your Bitcoin gains, and SARS is they've adjusted the tax return form for you to be able to type in your Bitcoin profits and Bitcoin losses. So you can also declare your loss, of course. If you have a capital gain loss, you can declare that, and that loss can be offset against future capital gains. So, but yes, you have to declare your Bitcoin gains.
Helga is also asking, please talk about commissions. Now, I think, Helga, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you mean is financial advisors, do they get commission on selling Bitcoins? I think you've explained it, that you don't really sell Bitcoins and the financial advisor cannot sell it. But yeah, just commissions from financial advisors.
Yeah, so if someone talks about commission, then you should step away. Many of the scammers and people pretending to be cryptocurrency companies, they will often refer to commission, they will refer to paying broker fees, they will refer to paying the cost of transfer. If you hear any of those words, then you should definitely step away. On Luno, how we make our money is when you convert your rands to Bitcoin, we charge a fee, and that fee can vary between 0.03% and 2%, depending on how much you buy and sell on Luno. That's the only fee. So there's no fee to store your Bitcoin on Luno. So we don't charge you a monthly fee to have the Luno wallet or to use the Luno account. You only pay when you convert rands to Bitcoin and Bitcoin to rands. So there's that conversion fee. But no financial advisor at this point in time in South Africa is allowed to offer financial advice on cryptocurrency. So if they do that, then maybe it's in their personal capacity as a friend and not in their professional capacity, or it's someone about to pull a scam.
Now, I think linked to that, Anne, is your question that surely there must be a fee somewhere. I think Marius just explained there's basically a transaction fee to facilitate the transaction, but you're also asking, do you charge additionally to store the Bitcoin values or keep your wallet in place? What other fees are applicable?
So it's buying and selling when there's a conversion fee. And then the other fee is a minor one, but that's, for example, when you want to send your rands, back to your bank account. We process that payment free of charge. But if you want to have an instant withdrawal, so if you want to move your rand from to your bank account instantly, we charge 20 rand. And that is just not to make money, it's just what the bank is charging us. When you send Bitcoin from your Bitcoin account to another Luno customer, so if all of you open Luno accounts and you send Bitcoin to each other's Luno's accounts, then there's no fee in sending Bitcoin. When you send Bitcoin from your Luno account to someone in Russia and they use maybe another company called Coinbase, then there's a fee linked to that. That fee usually is determined by the network capacity and the congestion of the network. But the important point there is whether you send 10 rands with a Bitcoin or whether you send 100 million rands with a Bitcoin, that fee will be the same, and it's usually a couple of cents. So unlike banks that charge a fixed percentage to send money cross-border, you pay the same fee whether you send 10 rand or 100 million rand from point A to point B.
Anne, are you happy? Okay, then Jeff has got a few related questions here. Just before I get to Jeff's question, Bernard also asked, can Bitcoin value be protected from inflation?
So I touched on Bitcoin being on a deflationary supply curve, meaning over time, less and less Bitcoin will be introduced into the Bitcoin market. So that creates that level of scarcity. So unlike, let's say the dollar, the Federal Reserve in the US can print additional banknotes, and they do this through very clever ways, but they can essentially inject new money that's created into the economy, and they have the control over that, how much and when and so on. And that is when we get inflation. It's when there's an increase in supply of money in the market. And so that's also the South African Reserve Bank's fear. They've reduced interest rates and they're very closely monitoring the risk of inflation, because lower interest rate, people go and borrow money, they spend more money, and the result of that is that over time goods and services become more expensive and more expensive, and that over time leads to inflation. With crypto, only 21 million Bitcoin can be in circulation, so it's scarce. So, in theory, that should protect people from inflation. So when we reach 21 million Bitcoin, it should protect people from inflation. But of course, the price is volatile. So it can protect you from inflation, but the price can depreciate by 10%. And then, so that's why it is risky to invest in as an asset class at this point. So people that invest in this invest small percentage of their money, not all of their money into Bitcoin.
Jeff, I think your questions related to the value and the up and downs and the 400%, I think Marius addressed that in the sense that, I mean, it's market related, demand and supply. But I think a more valid question from Dennis is, how is it limited? You've said now it's limited to 21 million Bitcoins forever. At the moment, there are 18 million already mined or issued or in circulation. So technically, or how, or who, why, how is it limited to only 21 million?
Johan, the short answer there is that that is a rule that is built into the Bitcoin rulebook. So it's coded into the Bitcoin rules, and the whole so when miners reach 21 million and when that cap has been reached, no more Bitcoin can be in circulation. So it's not determined by a government or by a central bank, but it's determined by the Bitcoin founding rules, which cannot be altered, it cannot be changed, it cannot be so that is the concept that this thing isn't controlled by any single person. The fact that it's controlled by a computer program, basically, that's what most people can't understand, and that's why this is such an interesting topic. The fact that without any human intervention, these rules can be set and can be created that cannot be altered. And effectively overnight, a new financial system was created that many people use. So Dennis, to answer your question, that limit is, it cannot be exceeded. It was determined by rules when Bitcoin was created in 2008.
Yeah, if I can add to that, Dennis, it's not a rule like a rule in South Africa that can change every week and there's a new rule or a counter rule. This is part of the algorithm, the original Bitcoin algorithm built into the blockchain. Mathematically, it's impossible to generate more than 21 million Bitcoins. So as long as Bitcoins are in circulation, it cannot exceed it. That does not mean there could be a different cryptocurrency which may exceed that, but because that's using a different algorithm or it was designed differently. But Bitcoins are mathematically limited to 21 million. Okay, and then Jeff comes up with a very interesting question. I've also had it on my list. He's saying here, it's estimated that cryptocurrency mining, the process of mining Bitcoins, uses more electricity than the Netherlands, mostly from fossil fuel sources. So actually, environmentally, it's very damaging. I've seen similar reports. Now, this is very applicable to Bitcoin, where the mining process uses intensive computer power. You can see the market value of graphic GPU cards are gone up because people are mining Bitcoins. Just your response to that, Marius?
So yes, in certain markets where people don't have access to renewable energy and cheap renewable energy, people have to use the energy or electricity that's available to them. So that is why very, very little mining activity happens in South Africa, because of the fact that Eskom is unreliable and because of the fact that we only use fossil fuels in Esther and that it's expensive. So most crypto miners, people that initiate the digital mining process, you will see in Asia, and also there's a lot of Bitcoin mining happening in South America and in the US, and that is where people have access to renewable energy, solar energy, and where people have access to cheap energy. So Jeff, yes, in countries where people don't have access to renewable energy, people will default to the energy that's available in that market, and they will use that. But that's why you have these pools in the Asia and in South America, North America, where people mine because it's more profitable, because electricity is cheaper and electricity is more readily available, and renewable electricity as well. So it is an interesting debate, and it's one that's been going on for a couple of years. And yes, there is some impact on the environment, to some degree. But if you then again, if you consider all the banks across the world, and you consider all the bank branches and all the operations and all the service that they run, and the electricity that each and every bank branch and operation consumes around the world, hundreds, millions of operations, you would probably also get come to a frightening conclusion there as well. So, so I'm not denying that to some degree it's happening, but most of the activity is happening in markets where renewable electricity is available.
Just also linked to that, sometime during your presentation, you said that if I transfer from my digital wallet to your digital wallet a portion of Bitcoins, it's sort of an instant process. Now, my understanding is that any transaction needs to be verified or validated or processed or mined, and that in Bitcoin's case specifically, it takes a while, and that's why Bitcoin, it will be very difficult to use Bitcoin for large volumes of transactions like Visa or MasterCard, because it's just too slow. Is that correct, or are there plans to change it?
Yeah, that's correct. So if you send Bitcoin between Luno accounts, then it's an internal Luno transfer, and then Luno manages the process and debits, credits the customer. So that in that event, it's instant and it's free. But if you send crypto from your account to someone else, then it goes to the blockchain. And at this point, yes, so that's why most people at this point will buy Bitcoin as an investment or to speculate. Some people use it for payments, and that is why we're seeing different types of cryptocurrencies like the USD coin that I mentioned. That cryptocurrency runs on a different blockchain, on the Ethereum blockchain, and it has a stable value. I see Jeff's question there, why would I use Bitcoin to pay for something? It completely makes sense. The Bitcoin price is volatile. So when the price falls, it will reduce the cost of whatever you're buying. So people use other cryptocurrencies that's more fit for payments. But lots of development is happening on the back end that we don't see and read about every day to make the Bitcoin payments network faster and cheaper, and to enable it to scale across more people and to be used for payments more widely.
Good. Okay, you've addressed, I think, Jeff's question again. Jeff, you say, why would you use Bitcoin to pay for a Tesla car, for instance, if the value of the Bitcoin is still $58,000 US? Why you would wait till the value falls? Do I understand you correctly, Jeff?
Yeah, Johanna, because of the volatility in the price, cryptocurrency is not money, right? So, because the value is so volatile, it's a problem, because it might go up, it might go down. Do I make the decision today to buy a Tesla, or do I wait 6 months? And I would think I think conservative people would probably go, well, a couple of years ago it was $20,000, so maybe I should wait and see what happens, and use money that's going to be probably eroded by inflation first, and keep the Bitcoin for as a reserve almost.
Yeah, I think you addressed it, Marius, with gradually, if you want to speculate with Bitcoin, don't buy today when it's 58,000, buy smaller portions over time when it's up and down.
Yeah, I think, Johan, and Jeff, I think Tesla enabled that because there was a customer demand, so their customers wanted to pay in Bitcoin, for their Teslas. So I don't think they would have added that just because they wanted to do it. So what we're seeing also from a payments perspective is so Visa and MasterCard will also start to issue crypto cards. But what happens in most cases is Tesla or other companies will receive dollars. So you have Bitcoin on your MasterCard, you swipe the card, on the back end, that Bitcoin gets converted to dollars, and Tesla at the end of the day will receive the dollars, but it enables you to pay with your Bitcoin. So most people don't use Bitcoin for payments; they accumulate because they think the value will increase over time. But some people use Bitcoin for payments. In markets like Nigeria, it's a good example where there's a scarcity of dollars. So people in Nigeria can't very easily just go to the bank and buy dollars. Firstly, they've got $2 markets. So the dollars in the parallel market, which people refer to as the black market, is trading at a 20 to 30% premium. So if you want easy access to dollar in Nigeria, you have to pay a premium to access it. And if you want to buy dollar through the bank, then they will either tell you you can't, we don't have dollar, or you'll have to wait a couple of weeks to access it. So in Nigeria, people buy Bitcoin because it's available. They can continue with their business. Many companies doing business in neighboring markets or in other countries, they can't get dollars. They can't do business. So they're buying Bitcoin and they're using it as a means of transferring value so that they can continue doing their business. So different use cases in different markets. In countries with high volatility in the local currency, and you see that across Africa, and in countries with hard currency scarcity, limited access in dollar, in those markets, it makes sense for people to use Bitcoin. But in other countries with stable currencies and with an abundance of foreign currency, people might not use Bitcoin at this stage. They might use it as an investment or as an asset class.
Kay, your question, is it an option to transfer money? And I assume you mean Bitcoin from one country to another. I think that is exactly what it's designed for. Marius, just explain the process.
Correct, John. It is possible to send Bitcoin from your Bitcoin wallet to any other person around the world to their Bitcoin address as well. So it is possible. Now, the grey area in South Africa at this point is exchange control regulation. So South Africa is one of, I think, 25 or 30 countries around the world with exchange control regulations, limiting the flow of money that can go cross-border. So if you send out rand from South Africa to another country, you can only send out 1 million rand. And if you get approval from SARS, you can send out 11 million. So you can only send 11 million rands. And if you're a high net worth individual to another country. So we've got rules around the flow of money, leaving South Africa. And that's where the regulators have a very difficult task at hand. So they're having to regulate something that's not catered for in the existing regulations, and it's something that's new and that's changing and that's developing as we speak. So people can send Bitcoin cross-border, and that is an area that the Reserve Bank is currently, and it's in their proposal as well, that they're trying to regulate. So they're trying to limit the amount of Bitcoin that someone can either buy on Luno or that someone can send cross-border, because it's against South Africa's exchange control regulations. So it's a great area that we're operating in currently, but the Reserve Bank is working through that, and they will put regulations in place.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how they will regulate it. I can't see that it's possible, but I'm sure they'll come up with some other plan. Then Roger has got a very interesting question. He's asking, is there an exchange traded fund or any other way to actually, that's listed on a stock exchange, where one can invest in the future or the development of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies?
I'm currently not in South Africa at least. So there's no publicly traded Bitcoin ETF. But what you can do, so if you don't want to buy Bitcoin yourself on a platform like Luno, I know Easy Equities. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about Easy Equities or maybe use them. It's a platform, it's an app that you install that you can buy and sell shares and invest in tax-free saving accounts. They have a product called Easy 10, and it's a basket of cryptocurrencies you can buy. So you put in money into Easy Equities, they're licensed. And with your 1,000 Rand, you not only get access to Bitcoin, but you get access to a basket of 10 different cryptocurrencies. So that's available in South Africa if you want to diversify from Bitcoin into some of the other cryptocurrencies. Just to note that because we're still very much at the early stages, these cryptocurrencies tend to be correlated to some degree. So yes, some of them can increase 1,000%, some of them will increase 1%, but most of them tend to move in the same direction. But over time, as the people start to use different cryptocurrencies for different things, investment, payments, store of value, etc., they should decouple and move in the other directions. In the US, they've got a more sophisticated regulatory landscape. many different companies have applications in place to list Bitcoin ETFs or Bitcoin ETNs in the US. So it's not readily available, but you can look at a company like Easy Equities and buy that basket, or you can buy Bitcoin yourself on Luno and do it yourself that way.
I'm aware of this Easy Equities fund with the 10 top cryptocurrencies, Roger, so I will include it in the email. I will, afterwards, when I send the links to the recordings out, I'll give you that information if you want to explore it further. Then Angela was asking, what happens in the case of death? Would Luno transfer the private key to the heir as per the will? Could there be more than one beneficiary? Can I guess the value of the Bitcoin would form part of your estate?
Yes to all of those questions. We have a process at Luno, so if in the event of a death, the executor will reach out to Luno with the letter of appointment and with the request. Our legal team will then look at it, and we will then, as per the executor's instruction, we will then transfer the Bitcoin to the estate late account. So either sell the Bitcoin and withdraw the Rand to the estate late bank account, or send the Bitcoin to the address that the executor instructed us to do. So we deal with that often, and it is possible to do that. The thing is just, you need to include the Bitcoin in your will, because if that's not in your will, and if you're trying to hide the Bitcoin from your spouse, then or from other people, then they won't know, whether you have Bitcoin, and it may be stuck on for forever. So you have to include it in your will, and then the executor will reach out to Luno, and there's a process around that.
Good. I'm going to do only 2 more questions. Then we have to move on. So firstly, Helga is asking a practical question. How many large merchants like Takealot or Amazon accept Bitcoin today?
Globally, quite a lot. Locally in South Africa, Takealot accepted Bitcoin for a couple of years. So previously, it was able to pay for goods on Takealot. About 6 months or a year ago, Takealot discontinued that service, and that is because of priorities, and there was too much maintenance work and work required to maintain that integration. So Takealot discontinued that, but they said that they're keeping an open eye and open mind, and they'll enable it again in future. Interesting point to make is Pick n Pay recently did a test at I think the Waterfront branch, where Pick n Pay enabled people to pay in Bitcoin at the tills. So it was a test for a limited time. I think it was a week or so, and they concluded that it is possible, and that they had a demand. Some people wanted to pay in Bitcoin, but that it's not part of their plans. And I suspect many of these retailers will wait for regulation in South Africa. So they'll have more comfort when the Reserve Bank says, this is how we regulate cryptocurrency. And there's a process around the taxation that SARS has implemented. I think more businesses and retailers will then come forward and say, okay, let's try this out because it's regulated. But at this point, some of them will experiment, like Pick n Pay. They will test it, but they won't roll this out to all of these stores across the country.
Thank you. And then the final question from Kay. Who invented cryptocurrency, and maybe more specifically Bitcoin, and who decided on the limits and the rules?
It's a good question, and I think this is sometimes one of the things that makes people skeptical about cryptocurrency. The fact that there's no name behind it or no company behind it. So cryptocurrency, the speculation is that it was created by a group of developers in the US called the cypherpunks, and that's a group of people that wanted to decentralize money the same way as the information system. So phone calls, video calls, SMSs got decentralized through technology that we use today. So they wanted to decentralize money and take the ownership away from government, essentially. And they came up with the concept of peer-to-peer money. So it's money that can be transferred between two people without the need to have a central authority. So the belief is that the person that created or that wrote the rules for Bitcoin's name is Satoshi Nakamoto. So it's obviously a Japanese name, but that person decided to stay anonymous. So that person, never made, come out and said, listen, I am Satoshi and this is who I am. He wanted to create anonymous so that this is truly a global and a decentralized system. He did not want to be associated to the person setting the rules and then being pressured to change the rules again in future and alter the process. So the rules, the limit and the rules were set by the founding team of people, and it was programmed into the Bitcoin protocol by, you can call it computer programs. So it was created by a person or a group of people, and that had the belief that they wanted to explore peer-to-peer money versus centralized money, and it was created in 2008. And interestingly, the first ever transaction with Bitcoin was a pizza. So someone paid, I think, 2 Bitcoin to buy a pizza in the United States. Now that pizza is worth $110,000 at this point. That was in 2008. So that was the first ever payment that was made with Bitcoin.
Thank you. Thanks for all the questions from everyone. And Marius, thank you very much. It was really fascinating to listen to you and all the questions and the answers to that. Thanks for your time. I know you're very busy, but I appreciate it. And I'm sure many of us or many of these participants will go and explore Luno. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Marius. Thank you, Johan.
Yeah, Johan, thanks very much. And I do have to apologize. I know you gave me an hour and I went on and on. So it's an hour and a half now. So apologies for going over time. But yeah, I really enjoyed the discussion. And then maybe just as a parting point. So maybe just to sketch the South African landscape from a crypto perspective. So we at Luno have got just under 3 million South African customers, and including other platforms, we think that roughly 5 million people in South Africa have cryptocurrency wallets. So it's roughly just under a tenth of the population. So it's still, there's a good level of familiarity. A lot of people can they've seen it somewhere or they've read about it, but they don't really know how it works. So our main goal in South Africa at this point isn't to push crypto down anyone's throat and to force people to buy crypto and to stop using the banks. We're not anti-establishment and anti-banks. We think that the two will complement each other, and people will use banks and they will use crypto together over the next couple of years for different reasons. It's not the one or the other. And it's not like Bitcoin will replace the banks and everything will just go to Bitcoin, internet money. There will be a hybrid approach where people use Bitcoin for different reasons. So we have a growing market in South Africa, thriving market, and so just on that note, thanks a lot again for everyone's time. You can go to luno.com. Remember that code 4IR if you want to just get 50 rands worth of Bitcoin and just figure out how the app works and how to send and receive Bitcoin. Then you can do that with that bit of money.
Now, our next meeting is on Wednesday, 28th April at the normal time of 10 o'clock. So, Louise, you should then not be too early. Back to 10 o'clock. Now, the topic in April will be the evolution of disk storage. Every computer user needs disk storage. If you own a computer, you already have some form of disk storage. Now, over the last 50 years, many types of storage devices were developed. It's all about storage capacity, the physical size, the read and write speeds, compatibility, durability, and of course the price. Now, I had no hesitation to ask one of our members to do this presentation in April. With his extensive knowledge and years of experience as an IT manager, Derek van Eden, who's unfortunately not with us today, is the ideal person to tell us all about computer storage. He's done a few other presentations earlier, so I'm sure you all will remember him. I will include that in the next newsletter as well. Then also, just before I get to the registration form, one of our members proposed that we start a WhatsApp group that can serve as technical assistance for NIR members. In other words, you can post your technical problem onto the group and other members can then reply with solutions. Now, in the February registration form, I gave you an opportunity to vote for or against such a group. The results were that 95% of the votes were for such a WhatsApp group. So since the February meeting, I gathered all the smartphone numbers. I now have all the paid up members' numbers and will establish the group after today's meeting. You can always just leave the group. If you don't want to be bothered or don't want to see it, you're welcome to just exit it. So if there are no other questions now, I can post it. Can everyone see it there in the chat panel? And then, yeah, thanks for attending and I'll see you next time.